How's your father like in his demeanor with you? Because it felt like there was a lot of discipline. Like, even just talking to you yesterday, and that had to be instilled in you. And how do you do that though? Like
honestly, that's probably my mom.
Really?
That was my mom. Like my mom, was like that Eastern European. Like, nope. Like, we grew up in communism. Like,
yeah,
she took care of business that way. Like my dad, I think he got. He made himself available, but it was on his terms. Like, it's like, if I was with him, it's like, we're going to go look at a job site. And you could always come, but, like, we weren't playing catch. We were going on a job site.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was different. My mom was sort of the drill sergeant. Like, no, this is what you're doing. She's really good management. My dad kind of took over once it's like, oh, you're done with business school. Now your ass is mine. Now I can, so it was unconventional, but it sort of worked.
Yeah. So, in the world I come from, as soon as they hear I'm sitting with you, a million things that they've thought or heard come to the surface. Yeah. They're like, well, you're going to sit with him or you got to be a sellout. And then that comes with, hey, that guy doesn't like black people. You had a comment in Vanity Fair where you're like, well, if my dad was racist, like he was pretty bad at it, right? And
if you look at the history, right? Look at some of the people, that have come out, even recently, Tyson from back in the day, but he'll say it to this day. It's like, hey, man, Trump's the only guy that was always honest with me. I may not have always taken his advice, but I should have.
Yeah.
There's pictures of me, back at, actually, I think it was like Tyson Spinks back in like 80s. Like, it's me with a bowl cut. I'm sitting on Herschel Walker's lap, one of the great NFL players of all time. Like, I used to go to Disney World with Herschel Walker and his family because my dad was like, I'm not taking you to Disney World. Like, go with Herschel. Like, you can tag along in there. Like, I'm like, if you're not letting a kid go at 6 years old. You know what I mean? You're just not doing those things. And
the black family.
Then you talk about sort of, all the rap songs and dude, and all the guys we hung out with. You know what I mean? Like, between Atlantic City, between sort of the events and the entertainers, like, I've had dinner with half the people that, magically became haters like 8 years ago. I'm like, I don't know, dude, it was weird. Like 3 months ago when we had dinner, you didn't seem to have a problem with any of these things, Like,
he was one of the most mentioned people in rap songs. Like, everyone wanted to be like Trump, had money like Trump. They was getting it like Trump. They were spending it like Trump. Until it became political.
Yeah. Well, and that, again, that was sort of the interesting thing. And, I understand the game. I get it. Like, you know what I mean? But it was interesting when you have people that, like, you actually considered, like, real friends. That was, like, it was just convenient for them. Whether it's, well, my record label will be just fine with me, shit-talking.
Actually, there was a big song, by two rappers, one that passed away, Nipsey Hussle and YG, was like, fuck Donald Trump. That was the song.
Yeah, that was so opposite of everything we'd ever seen. But, even...
when that's happening, what are you feeling like? Because now, like, culture and just like, you guys have been in this entertainment sphere, obviously been doing real estate and business, but like your dad's like a star, right? And he's been beloved, and then instantly things change. Come down the elevator.
Yeah, well, that was, it wasn't instant, actually. It was sort of interesting, right? You came down the elevator, this sort of the famous thing from The Simpsons, right? Like, it magically played out. He gave that speech, and he's talking about, well, there are rapists coming across the border, drug dealers. Well, it turns out that's 100% true, right? I mean, it's not even, But what was interesting and what people don't think of, they're like, the outrage was right then. No, it wasn't. The outrage came about 2 weeks later when he started actually making gains.
Okay, so
right?
they thought
he started winning. It was like, okay, it's not a big deal. This is fine. The second he started winning, that's when it was like, oh yeah, this is what it was, and that's, and it sort of sucked because it's like, I guess it's become like the easy button for anyone who doesn't actually have facts or points. So it's like, we're talking about math. Like, what do you mean it's racist? Like, and the problem with it is now, it almost feels like, the pendulum always overcorrects, right? So I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I will say it's not the cause of and solution for all of life's problems.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess it's sort of become that for many, at least on the left, right? It's like, that's the easy button. And the problem is for people who are actually affected by that, and there is some, at this point now you hear it, it's like, you roll your eyes, you move on, because like, well, if everything's right, and that's the problem. So those who are actually afflicted, And there is some. I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm not saying it's not an issue in our country and across the world. I've traveled the world, and there's places far more America, and I've been in. They try. Oh, if you're conservative, you're racist. Like, I don't know, man. I've been pretty far into the heart of like the deep right, and like it couldn't be further from the truth. But it doesn't matter, right? That's a narrative.
Well, also that narrative, even like I remember, I can't remember who said it, was most famously, they're like, yo, hey, that red MAGA hat that's the new KKK hat.
Yeah, I'm like, really? But then you see, like, if you have a black conservative, it's like, well, that person's instantly racist. I'm like, well, what do you mean? You can have different viewpoints. I think it's so important to actually, have that dialogue. I mean, if you look at you look at an administration, you look at even the things, my father's administration did for the black community, before we talk about even the economy, but like, the permanent funding of historically black universities, right? Kind of a big deal. Like, why didn't others do that before?
Yeah.
Trump's Democrats do all of these things. You had, obviously opportunity zones in the inner cities. It's probably not benefiting me, right? But it is benefiting a lot of other people. You had, the First Step Act, and like, hey, guess what? Someone smokes weed. Like, we're not going to throw them in jail for 25 years anymore. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
These were actually like serious gains that, probably benefit certain communities a lot more. And yet if Trump does it, it's like, well, that doesn't matter. That should have always been the case. It's like, fine, maybe it should have. Why didn't anyone do it?
Do you think most of these media, the one thing I've realized, and this is why I like politics, like, I like where I exist in like culture and music, because politics seems so divisive, even in the dissemination of it, even on a media perspective. If I watch one channel, one guy is completely evil. He's a devil. He does nothing right.
Correct.
And if I watch the other, it says the exact opposite. So, it's hard to, if you're someone who, like me, I like to listen to both sides of the argument, and I think I'm a logical enough person. I'll be like, well, you both kind of are right, but depending on how I feel and how I want to move forward, I'm going with this guy. Right.
Yeah, well, they've got rid of nuance, right? There's no more, like, you have to be 100% this or 100% that, or you're in, like, this no man's land. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And I'm with you. Like, I like having that conversation, and figuring out what that nuance is. And, that's contrary to everything, they say about me. I'm the most extreme human being in the world. I mean, I was listening back when you were sort of just doing the chat, talking Hunter Biden. And I understand that, I am not the upstanding citizen that Hunter Biden is with crack pipes and hookers and but if that was like the Don Jr. laptop, and there was videos of me with hookers taking $1 billion from China.
If you had a crack rock,
if this was a crack pipe instead of a cigar, like,
oh man,
they'll give me shit for smoking a cigar. But like,
wait, do we have one? We can go viral. That's what I'm trying to
do. Hey, someone bring me my crack pipe. But it's like I look at that, I'm like, wait a second. Like, I'm the scumbag, but that guy's no, he just has an addiction problem. Like, listen, everyone, like, people have these things. Like, it doesn't absolve you from being like a piece of shit in every other aspect of your life. Like, so I'd love some fair treatment in these things. We don't get that from a media, although it's coming around. I mean, like, listen, you see guys, you're going to be more culture, but like, you see sort of the rise of other people talking politics, whether it's me,
more independent media,
even. The Tate brothers and stuff like that, they get in there, they're talking about these things, and people are finally like, oh, wait a minute, like, the nonsense I heard on the news, they're busy. It's hard, man. It's not easy to get by in this world, no matter what, right? Like, everything's hard.
Yeah.
You may not pay attention to these things day in and day out, right? You're listening in the background, and, oh, this must be true. Like, why would they lie? But now you see everything, whether it's the narrative, with Trump, with Russia, like, he's a Russian asset. He's working, like, I'm like, yeah, he needed the money. Like, but it didn't stop it from being, like, the real story for